Welcome back, everybody, to another week of BA's Baseball Recap. This week, we are going over the latest free agent signings, as well as a couple that are still out there that are of interest to me, as well as other people's. We're going to go over the Ohtani and Ippei scandal fallout, since that's kind of come to a conclusion. We're also going to go over Pecota and Fangraphs' latest team predictions and standing predictions of who's going to make it, who's not, and what the win totals. And trust me, there are some differences to notice. And then we're gonna end on a few things to look forward to in the game of baseball going forward. Yoan Moncada has recently signed a 1-year deal, $5 million with the Angels. I actually like this pickup, this signing as well. He was one of those players that I think kind of, struggled with Chicago, knew they were gonna not be good, so he kind of was like not invested in his rehab or anything like that. He's definitely one of those change of scenario guys. Let's see if something can happen. Because if he doesn't change, he's likely going to be out of the game. So, but he's still young enough. He's still got plenty of time. This could be a bounce back contract if necessary, since it's only a 1-year deal. I think he'll get at bats out there in Anaheim as well. Tommy Pham also signs a 1-year deal with the Pirates. I know that was one of the few additions that the Pirates fans were expecting. Are we going to get an outfielder or not? Well, it's not an exciting pickup, and Pham is not a young buck by any means anymore. He's still a nice, solid player, and hopefully he'll give a little grit to that clubhouse. Pete Alonso rejoins the Mets. I don't think anybody's really shocked there. I think he wanted to come back. I think the Mets kind of wanted to bring him back as long as the dollar amount made sense. He ended up signing for a 2-year, $54 million. It is $25 million in 2025, and then there's a player option for 2026 for $29 million. Alonso and Soto there in the front or middle of the order, however you want to game plan around this lineup with Lindor. Vientos was taken off. Very solid, deep roster. Very curious to see how the Mets do this year, even without their ace to lead that rotation. Harrison Bader, another ex-Cardinals player on the list, signs a 1-year deal with the Twins for $6.25 million. They do have a club option in 2026. Kind of a replacement. I believe they had Taylor, that was kind of their backup defense first center fielder to help out with Buxton. So kind of just replacement what they already had lost. So we'll see if it really is much of a big change there out in Minnesota. Randall Grichuk, to follow my theme of ex-Cardinal players, another outfielder, returns to the Diamondbacks. He had a very solid year with them. I was really surprised that he did not get more love out there in free agency, but he returns on a 1-year, $5 million deal with a mutual option for 2026 with the Diamondbacks. And I swear, even though I am a Cardinals fan, this is just how the chips fell. But Jack Flaherty re-signs with the Tigers, going back to Detroit. He signed a 2-year, $35 million with the Twins. He's going to make $25 million in 2025. There's a player option for $10 million in 2026, but this comes with some escalators. So the $10 million is only guaranteed, and then I think if he makes so many amounts of starts, this gets bumped up another $5 to $10 million. So not just $10 million if he decides to stick around in 2026. And then last but not least, these are the three main players, in my eyes, that are still left out there as free agents. So we got Alex Bregman in the middle. I think we're all aware that he still is not signed. At this point, with training camps starting soon, pitchers and catchers are reporting, I believe, in the next few days, if they haven't already this weekend. Rizzo, I know he's a veteran. I know he's got injuries. Maybe he might be limited to a platoon role, but still a very good player, potentially. I think he's another solid clubhouse guy to have on your roster. Very shocked he is not signed by now. And then David Robertson still wants to pitch, still wants to play. I believe he's age 39, might be turning 40 next year. But he had a very, very good 2024 season. So not looking for a major deal, 1-year contract, which I mean at this rate in the game, you can't really lose on a 1-year deal. So I'm very shocked he is not signed yet. I don't think he's going to cost an arm and a leg either, so we'll see what team finally steps up to the plate and gives him an offer. All right, and the latest news with Ohtani and his former interpreter that got busted in the betting scandal. If you go to CBS News, this kind of recently broke over the last couple of days. I'm just going to read the article because the article is super, super short. This is by Marissa Wensky, and this is on CBSNews.com. So, title is Shohei Ohtani's former interpreter gets more than 4 years in prison, must pay $18 million in restitution. That's the title. Ippei Mizuhara, former interpreter for Shohei Ohtani, was sentenced Thursday to more than 4 years in prison and ordered to pay $18 million in restitutions in an illegal betting case in which prosecutors say he stole millions from the Dodgers star. Mizuhara pleaded guilty last year to one count each of bank fraud and subscribing to a false tax return, admitting to stealing millions from Japanese player to pay off illegal gambling debts. On Thursday, a federal judge in Orange County sentenced him to 4 years and 9 months in prison, same length of time prosecutors were seeking. The charges had carried a maximum possibility sentence of 30 years. So, in a sense, the fact that he only got a little less than 5 years, maybe round down to 4 years, and it could have been 30. So they cut a pretty sweet deal for him, and I think they kind of also didn't want to drag this through the media. I don't think anybody wanted that, especially baseball specifically. I mean, maybe a book deal, maybe a show's gonna be about this later, but the fact that he only got 4.5+ years, could have been 30, that's a little nuts to me. So Mizuhara must surrender to federal authorities by March 24th. Prosecutors say he stole nearly $17 million from Otani's bank account while working as his primary translator, wiring the money in an unauthorized transfer from the player's checking account between November 2021 and January 2024. He began gambling with an illegal sports bookie in September 2021, according to prosecutors, and started to lose substantial sums of money several months later. During that time, prosecutors said the contact information on Otani's bank account was changed, and rather than including the player's information, it linked to an anonymous email address connected to Mizuhara as well as his phone number. Prosecutors said he also called the bank and falsely identified himself as Otani so he could get wire transfers from the player's account to reach the illegal gambling associates he was trying to pay off. Last month, an audio recording obtained by the Associated Press surfaced in which Mizuhara allegedly impersonated the baseball star on a call with a bank as he tried to transfer over $200,000. Prosecutors said he claimed the money was for a car loan. As his primary translator, Mizuhara was tasked with helping Otani communicate with fans and his English-speaking teammates. The Japanese player is widely recognized as one of the biggest stars in the league, nabbing his first World Series win last year and breaking MLB's record during the same season. Became the first player to hit 50 home runs and 50 steals and steal 50 bases in the season. End quote. Okay. I was trying to read the article as it was and not paraphrase it or whatever, but I think he also, I don't know if it's out there yet or not for the public to see. I believe it is. He wrote a letter to the judge that, I mean, if I want to find it and I want to read it myself, the little tidbits and stuff that I got was like, woe is me, I had to do this crap for Otani and I should have been paid more, and just like, and the judge just was not buying it. It was just like, no, you're kind of a piece of shit for doing this and you took advantage of this guy. Since it is only February 9th as we're recording this and he's got to surrender by March 24th, because I mean, they didn't have to go to court. They didn't do all that. He made a plea deal. They sentenced it that way. I think they kind of give him a little bit of time to get his finances and stuff in order. I believe since he is not, I can't remember if he had a work visa or what his situation was, but I think he's going to also get deported back to Japan. I have no idea how, like, legalities from country to country change. I don't know if they'll uphold our sentencing here. I'm not quite sure how that happens. I'm not a criminology expert. I could honestly see Japan coming down even harder, or somehow, like, I don't know if they could also put charges on him even though it happened in another country. I'm not quite sure how that happens, because I'm assuming by now Otani's probably like a split citizen, so I'm not sure how all those charges carry. But it's very interesting to me that a lot of this stuff was kind of going on. Like, I know I mentioned it previously in, I don't know if it was a video, but another stream or whatever, where, remember when we were talking about like new rules that were going to be happening in baseball and how we thought they were so silly? And I had mentioned, like, you realize this is basically like not a puff piece, but like it's basically masking the story that they don't want you to talk about, which was Ippei getting charged and needing to report to court and all this stuff. Like, his court case was due. It was, shit was about to happen. And they didn't want to talk about it. And, baseball's off season because they don't want to, all this stuff is kind of negative light and they don't want anything to rub off onto baseball because, I think they released the numbers last week or two about how much money the MLB actually made. And I think it was over like $12 billion, I believe, which is a hell of a lot of money. And it was like the most they had made in at least the last couple of years, for sure. Again, that's another one of those things where they don't want to, like, it's one of those like, hey, we're making money, we're doing great, look at us. And then at the same sense, it's also like owners are like, Oh yeah, we're not making that much money. Baseball's making that much money just so they can continue to justify this push for salary cap, push for not having to pay for players, that sort of thing. Okay, we're moving on to the predictions. So this is Pecota's. Now I realize on screen that might be a little hard to read, so I'm gonna try to read it for you as well, especially if you're just kind of listening to the audio version of this. But in the AL East, they got, I'll just, in order, this is who they got winning. Yankees in first, O's in second, Blue Jays in third, Rays in fourth, and Boston in fifth. So they got the Yankees win estimations at 89. They have at 89.1, O's at 88.6, Toronto at 85 flat, Tampa at 82.2, and then Boston at 77.8. In the AL Central, they have the Twins, followed by the Royals, Guardians, Tigers, and then White Sox. So they have the Twins at 86.3, the Royals at 81.3, the Guardians at 80.2, Detroit Tigers at 78.5, and the White Sox at 61.6. I'm going to read these all off, and then I'll kind of break down some thoughts that I have. All right, AL West, we have Texas, and then the Astros, followed by the Mariners, Angels, and then Athletics. So Texas, they have at 89.6. Astros, they have at 86.9. Mariners, they have 86.1. Angels, 76.9. And the Athletics at 70.2. Okay, out there in the NL East goes Braves, Mets, Phillies, Nationals, Miami Marlins. So Atlanta, they have 92 even. Mets at 91 even. Philly at 87.9. Nationals at 73.7. And then the Marlins at 61.8. Interesting enough, with the White Sox and the Marlins both pretty even. They're pretty close, only 0.2 difference. Coming up is the Rockies is actually who they have as the worst projected team in baseball. So, all right, NL Central, they have the Cubs in first, Brewers coming in second, then the Cardinals, Pirates, and Reds. So the Chicago Cubs are at 90.8, Brewers at 80.6, Cardinals at 77.5, Pirates at 74.8, and the Reds at 73.7. In the NL West, they have the Dodgers in first at 103.5, followed by the Diamondbacks at 87.1, then the Padres at 82.6, and then the Giants and Rockies. Giants are at 78, and then the Rockies are at 54.8. Wow, that's brutal. 107.2 is their loss total. So if I'm looking at this correctly, their playoff teams in the AL are the Yankees, the O's, who are both above 70. Twins would win their division, and they're at 65.2. The Rangers would win their division, 79.2, and then it would be Astros and the Mariners, it looks like, to get the wild card spots. So they're Rangers, Twins, Yankees are the three teams that win, and then the wild card spots go in order: the Orioles, Astros, and then the Mariners. So teams that made the playoffs last year, Royals wouldn't make it, Guardians wouldn't make it. I think Detroit made it too. Yeah, Detroit didn't make it either. So that's interesting. And then the Braves winning, Cubs winning, and the Dodgers winning all their divisions. The Mets then would secure the first wild card. And then I believe it's the Phillies, followed by the Diamondbacks. So I feel like that's pretty fair. But all right, let's break it down. So the Yankees at 89.1, I can get behind that. I still kind of feel like, even though they have some, I think, some holes that they need to address, specifically in their infield, they have made some good moves. The fact that they didn't sign Soto, I don't think that's going to completely bomb their team. They went outside Devin Williams as well, so that's going to help them with their bullpen. Got Max Fried. They actually have plenty of pitching. With Stroman kind of the odd man out of this situation right now, where it's like kind of making too much to go into the bullpen. But they've made improvements. Their team's pretty good. I still believe that they're probably sitting right now at the top of that division right now. The O's, I'd probably less. Like 88.6 is fair. I might knock them down a little bit more just because of that division. They really haven't addressed their starting pitching. That's, to me, that's the biggest concern. Like, they lost the bat, they lost Santander. I think that was like 40 plus home runs or whatever. But I mean, all the prospects that they have are majority are position players. So I think they'll be fine. I think they can figure that out as long as some of their younger guys like either step up and contribute, and then the young guys that got to play last year like take that next step. I think offensively they'll be fine. I know their star closer or whatever Batista should be back, but I'm not sure that they have, unless they can stay completely healthy. They because they have some like back end arm depth for starters, but in the playoffs, man, they don't have anybody that really scares me unless Grayson Rodriguez takes another huge step forward or something, but he's one guy. So I don't know if I honestly have them number two. I think Boston, like if we're playing a little over under game, which I mean we kind of are, I would love to take the over on Boston. They have them at 77.8. That means they have them falling in there below 500. I mean, they went out. Who is it? I can't remember who they signed. Oh, they signed Walker Bueller, and then they traded for Garrett Crochet. So it's like Crochet. So they knocked kind of their other starters down a little bit. I think Casas is coming back. I still think Bregman would fit in Boston. I don't like necessarily him like moving to second. I think he'd be fine, but I think Devers is kind of like, I'm not moving off of third base. This is my job, like whatever. But I don't know. I think Boston's way better than below 500 team. I think if anything, the Boston and Toronto on this map of projections should be flipped. I could see Boston with 85, and I could see Toronto with the sub 500 team because they are the bridesmaid of this offseason. Although Boston, I've kind of were for the top end of the market as well. Like, but they actually made some moves, and they have some like high level prospects that are flirting with the big league. So I would flip Boston and Toronto in this projections for Pecotas. But without diving too deep into every single team, let's move on to the AL Central. Twins, I don't think the Twins have really made any major moves that I can recall that actually makes their team much better. So to me, I'm almost like, okay, well, the Royals didn't have a big splash this offseason, but they still have the good starting pitching. They got India, so they improved there. They got Estevez, I believe, in the bullpen, so they improved there too. And somehow it's like they're a 500 team. Like, maybe they don't like their projections, just don't like the roster right now. And yes, their offense does need to improve, but they got solid starting pitching. They improved their bullpen, like. And the fact that the Guardians, the team that won the division and has constantly kind of proved that like they know how to compete, they know how to turn out good ball players. Like, yes, they made a trade. They lost their starting second baseman. They've kind of moved around and gained some arms, which, there's one thing that I kind of believe in is that the Guardians right now have a system set up in place that they can find arms, manipulate whatever, and get them to contribute at the big league level. So, again, this is a really weird one for me. And then the Tigers, like, okay, they didn't make any big major moves. They made minor stuff here and there. I think they're really kind of believing in their young guys. They're going to take the next step. But for them to be below 500, I mean, they just signed Jack Flaherty. So that was like, to me, the main thing was like, they need more starters. They can't do that chaos pitching strategy all year long without completely burning out guys. Because, Job's going to step up. He's probably going to be in the rotation. So you got Scooble Job, and then you sign Flaherty, and then, like Mize and all those other guys. Hopefully they can come back healthy and contribute. So I think they'll be good. I think they'll be around 500. I don't necessarily, like they signed Gleyber Torres, another, adding more to that. Curious what happens there, though. I would love to see Bregman go to Detroit. But again, this is where having key free agents out there that haven't signed kind of always throws a wrench in some of these predictions. But Tigers, I don't know. To me, I feel like you still kind of have to give Guardians the top spot. So I might flip like them and the Twins. But like to me, this is good. Like it's not the sexiest division, but it actually is kind of can be a competitive division this year. And I'm curious to see what happens. All right, moving on to the AL West. I actually think this one's pretty solid. Like they didn't completely shit on the Athletics, and the Athletics have made some moves that they should improve, and they do have some young guys coming and that have shown up. So okay, like they're not gonna be all-star caliber team. They're probably not fighting for a playoff spot right now. But they're not one of the worst teams in baseball anymore, so that's good. Angels have made like improvements, marginal ones around there, but for whatever reason, the coaching, the development, whatever, they just never seem to like take that next step. I feel like I always overestimate the Angels. So like them, they have them basically at like 77 and 85, so they're a sub 500 team. Honestly, that's probably about what they are though. I don't know what their pitching is. I feel like they've lost some of the guys or that I was like excited for, or they've gotten injured and kind of been released. So okay, that kind of is what it is. I think the Rangers are like in the perfect spot, kind of. They have young starters, like starting pitching outfielders that are like coming that or are there. They just need to get healthy again. And then they have veterans that have been studs that also just kind of needed to get healthy again. So I think they're going to make a bounce back. They'll be fine. I do believe that them and the Astros are, either going to win the one of them's going to win the division and the other one's going to be like the top wild card spot. That's kind of how I view it. But Astros have made some moves. I wouldn't have traded Tucker, but I get that they're like, okay, well, we might as well get something for him. And, they did get a good prospect. I think it was Cam Smith. They did get Paredes, who I believe is going to be very good for the Astros in that ballpark. They signed Christian Walker, who, good bat, good veteran player, great glove. That's going to help them out. They've always kind of had pitching. They've always had arms. They got Presley's contract off the books as well. So maybe a little bit of leeway if they want to make some additions there at the deadline. But either way, this one's pretty fair. The Mariners, I feel like, are the biggest issue. They still have their starting pitchers. They didn't make any splashes. They didn't make any major trades. Polanco returns to them, but they didn't really add anything major to their offense, which was, a huge eyesore last year. So I know they got some prospects that are coming that are getting close, but to me, this kind of seems like they're just running back last year's squad, which if you're a Mariners fan, that's not really what you want to see. So, but in the same sense, I'm a Cardinals fan. We're kind of doing the exact same thing. So at least you got starting pitchers to get excited about. Although, their arbitration and contract control years are kind of being wasted if you're not going to add some offense to the squad. So, all right, the NL East with the Braves and the Mets. One game apart. 92 wins for the Braves, 91 for the Mets. Now, Atlanta, who was the outfielder? So they did sign Profar. So kind of upgraded it slightly in the outfield. Like as long as their guys can come back healthy, even like half of them. Like I don't know if Strider's going to be there to start the season, but he'll be there majority of the season. I think they're still missing like one, maybe two arms, but I mean their bullpen I feel like is pretty much coming back. They were kind of the cream of the crop, except the injury bug just hit them so bad last year. And as much as the Mets have like improved with like brought about Alonso, they got Soto as well. They kind of have stick to the all right. Let's sign like threes and fours and see if we can tweak them a little bit to make them play up into like twos. They've kind of stuck to that formula, so I'm curious if that works again. If Senga can come back healthy and all that, so we'll see what happens with the Mets. They're going to be interesting. And then the Phillies, who were, should have I feel like run away with the division probably last year. I don't think they've made like any major moves other than I mean they added Luzardo. I'll give them credit. That's a good solid addition, but I don't feel like starting pitching was any of their weakness spots at all. So if they can get to the playoffs, yeah, they got a filthy starting rotation that can carry them. I really, really thought at the start of the offseason they were going to move Baum, and that's what all rumors were indicating, and maybe try to upgrade like second or third. And the guy that's out there right now, again, I hate to keep mentioning him, is Bregman. He was the number one guy that, like, in my preseason predictions of players to be signed, I had Bregman going to the Phillies because I thought the Phillies were going to be a little bit more aggressive in spending on like one or two like key guys at the top of the market. And whether they've tried or not, they've struck out and they haven't been linked to anybody or anything. So we'll see what happens. Either way, I do kind of think that there's going to be at least two wild cards coming out of this spot. Nationals, 74 wins if we're rounding up. I do think they have a young group of guys. In my world, I thought the Nationals would have been more aggressive into adding some guys this year. Even like veterans to help like young guys evolve or whatever. Like I know they had Rosario as kind of that like veteran depth middle infield player. I thought they should have went after guys like like Goldschmidt or somebody else like that. But they didn't. They really haven't done much. So they're kind of running it back, kind of allowing guys to develop. So Woods, Cruz, like you're getting your shots, guys. So at least you have some prospects to look forward to in that sense of things. I know they got some arms that are there as well. See if they can take the next step. See if they can continue to build up their arms and pitch, deeper into the year. But we'll see. Marlins are a train wreck. I don't want to talk about them. NL Central. This one is kind of interesting to me. Like, I don't think the Cardinals are going to be absolutely terrible just running it back. I do think they're not really losing much by like letting some of the younger guys like Rosefo and Palante like just letting them pitch. They did just sign like Nick Anderson, and I think they made a trade for Hellman or whatever. It's kind of like a weirdly enough, he's a guy that I signed in an out of the park baseball, and like he kind of became like a hidden stud for me. I don't think that happens in real life, but I could see the Cardinals in third place in this division. I mean, the Reds. Terry Francona is a coach I love. One of the two teams between the Reds and the Pirates, I either feel like they're gonna way over exceed expectations, but only one of them. I don't feel like both of them can do it in the same year. But like the Reds at only 74 wins, and the Pirates basically, if you round up at 75, like they're both mid or not mid, they're both sub 500 teams by far. I don't think I like the Pirates pitching, but they're young, so I feel like they're gonna be the bottom team here. Um, Maybe I could see the Cardinals in the fourth spot. And then the Reds, with all their young guys, with Francona, maybe he hits the right buttons, makes the right moves. They did trade for Brady Singer, kind of solidify some of that starting rotation. I still think the Reds are probably battling to be like a little above 500, maybe a wild card third spot, but I have them third. Brewers, I feel like they've lost, quite a bit. They lost Adames. I mean, obviously they lost Burns all year, but they've just found a way. Like Woodruff's coming back. They just find ways to get guys to work and maximize their potential. And they still have those outfielders that are pretty solid as well. I don't think they're a 500 or a sub 500 team. I think they're a little bit better than that. I don't think the Cubs run away with this division with their 90 to 91 wins. Like, yes, they've actually been somewhat aggressive this offseason. They've made some nice additions. Tucker is the one star of the team that, they really kind of needed too. They moved Belly, got him off, so they can kind of let, Pete Crow Armstrong do his thing. They're definitely a team to watch because they kind of had starting pitching, and they've made some moves for their bullpen as well. So I do think the Brewers and the Cubs are going to be fighting for the top spot. But I think the team that wins this division is probably going to be at like 86 wins. But yeah, if we're taking the over-under again, I'm taking the over on the Cincinnati at 73.7. Like some of these other ones I feel like are pretty fair. Like the NL East, pretty fair. AL East, I feel like is pretty fair. AL Central, I feel like is it could go either way. It's hard to take, but I love the Reds over. I love the Red Sox over. I'm taking the under on the Toronto at 85. The NL West is I'm kind of in there as well. Dodgers are the class of this division. There's no way around it. They were already good. Then they made good signings. They added more and more talent. So, Diamondbacks, I do believe in the Diamondbacks. They have them at 87 wins. I think that's fair. They have the Padres taking a huge step back. And, like, yes, they lost Profar offensively. They also lost Ha-Seong Kim. He went to the Rays, and they're going to move Bogarts back to shortstop. So their defense is definitely going to take a hit. But they still got a good, solid team. Schilt, I'm a big fan of the coach. They haven't really lost any of their, like, arms either. Like, I know that some of these names are on the block to be traded. Tanner Scott was a trade addition. He left free agency. Like, yes, they lost him. But they have the Padres, like, only a few games above 500. So they're 82.6. I'd probably take the over on that. Giants, I'm kind of iffy there as well because I do like some of the additions that they've made, but they also kind of had that bridesmaid class this offseason as well, where they were in negotiations with certain guys but didn't really land. So the biggest fish they got this year was Adames at shortstop. I'm hoping some of the younger guys can, take that step up as well. But I think they're above 500 team. But I haven't crunched the numbers yet to see, like, because you got to even it out. All right, if this guy's up here, this team's up here, then somebody else has got to go down. So I haven't run the numbers on those yet. All right, now if we look at Fangraphs, again, this might be kind of hard to read, but we'll go. They're starting with the NL here on this time. So NL East, you got the Braves, 93.4, Phillies 87.4, Mets at 86.7, Nationals at 72.5, and the Marlins at 70. So they got a little bit more faith in the Marlins. I think that was 61 at Pecota. But I mean, regardless, the Marlins are not a very good squad. And they trade away Luzardo. I think Sandy's going to come back sometime this year. I don't know what their game plan is for him coming back from Tommy John, but I'm a big Sandy fan. I hope he gets moved out of there because I hate seeing good players and good people like stuck on bad teams with bad ownership. So again, they also have the Cubs in first. This is kind of more the realistic expectations that I would expect for the NL Central. They have the Cubs winning the division at 84.4, followed by the Brewers at 81.5, Cardinals at 78.4, Pirates 78.1, and the Reds 77.9. So again, I'm probably taking the over on the Reds, and I'm probably taking the over for the Brewers as well. Cubs kind of where I was expecting. I think they're about 85, 86. NL West, they have, I guess, more reasonable tepid expectations for the Dodgers at 97.5. Diamondbacks 86, Padres at 81.5, Giants at 80.4, and the Rockies at 63.6. So I feel like these are more like kind of reasonable expectations, but I'm still taking the Padres as an over as they only have them at 81.5. Same kind of similar stuff where it comes to Braves win the division, and then the Mets and the Phillies are both wild card spots. They just kind of had those two flipped. Cubs win the division in the Central, Dodgers win it in the West, and then the Diamondbacks are also fighting for a wild card spot. So pretty similar in terms of the teams, but like Mets, Marlins, Nationals a little bit different. And then the NL Central is definitely smaller, and the NL West, they kind of distributed that a little bit better. Over here on Fangraphs. All right, in the AL East, they got Yankees at 87.2, Red Sox 83.8, Orioles at 82.9, Rays at 82.3, and the Blue Jays at 81.7. So to me, this feels more realistic for the AL East. Like, I could see the Yankees getting 90 wins, just, pulling out a couple extra ones or whatever, but I think this is more similar to what I'm expecting. They have their Red Sox at basically 50.7% chance to make the playoffs. So they're fighting for that last wild card spot. But I think that's probably pretty fair. I think I still might take the over. I'm kind of on the Red Sox bandwagon this year, even though I don't really like their ownership at all, but I still think they're around 85, 86 wins. So this is like a close bet, but I don't know if I don't think the payoff would be worth it, but I would still take the over. All right, AL Central, they also have the Twins in first place. So they have Twins at 84, Tigers at 82.8, Royals at 82 even, Guardians at 77.6, and the White Sox at 62.3. So they also are not giving any faith or trust in the Guardians system. They have them as a sub 500 team, not making the playoffs at all. And they also believe in the Twins. So they're Twins winning the division, and then the Tigers have a 47.5 chance to win the playoffs, but I think according to this, they would not with these, because then if we go down to the AL West, the Rangers at 84.8, Mariners at 84.5, Astros at 84.1, Athletics at 75.7, and the Angels at 74.7. So they actually have the Angels in last, Astros in third, and the Mariners fighting with the Rangers for the top spot. I mean, to me, it's like it's fair because they're like 84.5, so it's like they're not really, they're a few games above kind of 500 where you want to be. And 85, I feel like is fair for the Mariners, but I just think the Astros and I would take the over for Astros and Rangers, and probably even the Angels on this one at 74.7. And I definitely take the over on the Guardians. Man, this AL Central is going to be one to watch, I feel like. I feel like the AL West I feel pretty confident in. I think I'm very similar with this expectations with the AL East, but in total, they have the Yankees, Twins, Rangers winning their divisions. They then have the Mariners, Astros, and Red Sox as your 3 wildcard spots, which I mean is kind of fair. I think we might get another one out of the AL Central, depending on which team kind of like flops, takes a step back, or maybe has injuries, and then the rest of the AL East or the AL Central kind of beat up on. But I could honestly see that this year where we have, you have your top winners, and then you have one wild card from each AL spot, which honestly would be nice to see. That's kind of what we want to see for the wild card. We don't want to see one division just carrying all the teams, and even though they've played each other all year. So wouldn't be mad at that. And then last but not least, for those that are like, man, catchers and pitchers are reporting, I need my fix. I need my baseball. Well, guess what? College baseball is starting on whenever you're gonna see this. So this is coming on Sunday, which is technically the start of the week. By Friday, we will have college baseball games to watch. Whether you can find it or not is another question. That's something else entirely. But I'm excited. We finally got some college baseball. It is here. I know the Tennessee, they have, I think they call it the Pizza Series, which is basically just like exhibition games. But college baseball is almost here. If you're not into college baseball or you don't know much about it, follow me. I recommend getting into it now. I think the game is about to blow with all the NIL stuff and the fact that players no longer have to like sign out of high school on a big draft contract. They can just go to college and develop. It's going to help the game. It's going to help the draft be more exciting because you have more polished players coming out. You no longer have to like draft and stash them and forget about them for 4 or 5 years. Now, if you get more college players coming out that you draft, and teams, they definitely want to push them a lot faster now because the game's more fine-tuned in development. We're going to see some guys that were drafted this last year or these last 2 years, like in the big leagues this year and next year. So stay tuned. Pick your team, follow them, and just like, especially around draft time, around the All-Star break, watch the playoffs, watch the College World Series. It's a whole lot of fun. I'm going to try to incorporate more of this stuff into some of my streams and some of my coverage going forward. So there's something to look forward to. And then if college is not really your speed, there is some World Baseball Classic qualifiers that start in a few weeks as well. Now, if you can see on this graphic, the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 25th. Now, they're not ideal when it comes to time slots because I think it's like 11 p.m. or 6 a.m. in the morning. So it's not ideal, and like you might not have any interest in these teams at all. But they're fighting for one of the last spots in the World Baseball Classics that's going to come in 2026. And they're free to watch. So free on Facebook, YouTube, MLB TV, and they have their own website, worldbaseballclassic.com. This is some of the rounds. So you have South Africa, Nicaragua, Spain, Chinese Taipei. Now, you had these teams going in a couple of weeks, and then you also, to start off in March, if those time slots don't work out, this is a different area, so this is, I think, a little easier to watch. But China, Germany, Brazil, Colombia, I think these are kind of more fun teams to watch, but they're also going to be coming on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday in early March. So again, you got something else that you could possibly watch, kind of get you hyped as spring training is taking fold. I don't think games start yet. They might be starting about the time this is going off, but something to look forward to, guys. Baseball's almost here. Definitely by early March, I'm assuming that we'll have our Bregman signings and any of those other small pieces that I mentioned that are of interest. But that's BA's baseball recap for the week. I will see you in another 2 weeks. So let me know what you guys are looking forward to most.